safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
The best way to spend a cool and chilly afternoon is in a puddle of fur. All the lions cuddled up together this afternoon. This is Safari Live.
Ready. Standing by.
You are live. A very good afternoon to all of you and welcome on our sunset safari, where we are starting off with one of the most beautiful images that the African bush has to offer. A pride of lions in the glorious yellow grass. Oh, good timing, girl. In the golden sunlight. It really is quite a beautiful way to start. And a very special warm welcome to the school joining us this afternoon. My name is Jamie, and this afternoon Craig is on camera with me, and we're coming to you live from a place called Djuma Private Game Reserve, which is in the Greater Kruger National Park area of South Africa. So kids, I hope you're all super excited to be on a safari. Remember, what you're seeing is happening right here in real life here in South Africa. So send through any questions that you'd like to ask us. And for all of our regular viewers, hashtag Safari Live is the way that you can get hold of us. Questions or comments. Now this is a pride of lions known as the Nkuhuma Pride. And from doing a quick head count, it looks as though we've got 10 lions here, 4 adult lionesses, and then the rest of them, believe it or not, are still relatively young cubs. And what's amazing about that is just how much they've grown. I haven't seen them in a while, and these cubs have got so big. Oh, big stretch. And this is what lions like to do at this time of day. Have a lazy afternoon before it's time for them to get up and go hunting. And just by the way, the school joining us this afternoon is Frank W. Cox, and it's actually a high school. So wonderful to have all of you with us. It is fantastic. Now, the Nkuhuma Pride have been absent from Djuma for a fair amount of time, and it's nice to see them back once again. And it's our dry season here in South Africa. So that basically means that the prey, the movements of the prey that they're going to be hunting has started to shift, and we're seeing more and more buffalo come back to this area, which means, hopefully, the Nkuhumas are back and here to stay. And since our lions don't seem to be too keen on hunting just yet, let's go across to Tristan so he can say hello and show you something that they might like to eat.
Well, indeed, Jamie, I'm sure those lions would love to tuck in to the rump of this beautiful kudu female, but luckily for them, the kudus are quite far away from where the lions are, and so it should be all okay. Now, as Jamie said, my name is Tristan, and on camera today I have Ferg, and you can see that we have this beautiful kudu just sort of moving through the thickets. Now, a kudu is an antelope that we get out here very regularly. We see them quite a lot, but they really do like to conceal themselves. So it's quite nice to kind of see them every now and then when they come out a little bit. Now, there is a baby somewhere in there, and so hopefully we'll be able to see them. And before I forget, a very, very warm welcome to the school that's joined us this afternoon. I hope you guys will enjoy your time with us on safari out here in Africa, and that you will enjoy the time that we spend with all of the beautiful animals that we have out here. Hopefully the lions will get a little bit more active. Now, for all the other viewers that are joining us, remember that you can also send your questions through to hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, and we will try to get to those a little bit later after the school drive. Now, I'm going to just try and reverse a little bit just to see if we can't find this kudu calf, because it is quite a cute little calf. It's still small. I would say it's probably only about 3 or 4 months old. So I'm going to just try to get back. Now, unfortunately for these kudu, it's quite a tough life out here. They've got a number of predators that they have, so being able to raise a calf to adulthood is not the easiest of feat. You'll find that they have to deal with a lot of different predators, so lions being one of them, but we also have leopard and hyenas and wild dogs and varying others that could be out there. Now, the little calf is just through there. You can see it's poking its head out. There we go on the right hand side there, Ferg. There we go. So there it is, having a little feed. So it would have been probably by now off its mother's milk. And so it's onto food already. It's eating lots and lots of leaves, and these kudu are browsers, which means that they only eat off the trees themselves. So you won't see them eating grass. They're not grazers, so they're not like some of the other antelope that we get in this particular area. But look at how carefully it's feeding. The reason why it's feeding so carefully and kind of just biting down very gently is because that particular tree has got very, very sharp thorns. That tree is called a buffalo thorn, and it has this long straight thorn and one hooked thorn. And for us as people, if we had to grab that branch like that little kudu is doing now, we would cut our hands to pieces. And so for the kudu, it has very, very thick skin on the tongue and on the lips, and that allows them to feed off these sort of more thorny trees. It does mean, though, that they have to be a little bit gentle and they can't bite down too hard and sort of hurt themselves. There we go. Well done, you clever thing. Look at the size of its ears in comparison to its face. It's got massive, massive ears. Now, don't go behind the bush. Oh, there we go. Just getting another angle when the leaves are difficult to reach. Got to go around and make a better angle for oneself. There we go. Now, the reason why they have such large ears is because in the areas that they like to spend time, they like these sort of denser, thicker areas with lots of vegetation, and so that means that it's a lot more difficult for them to see what's going on. So when predators are moving through here, it's hard because the predators camouflage very well, and so what you need is something, well, another sense to be able to pick up the predators. And so the kudu's massive ears mean that they are able to collect a lot more sound, and they're able to hear what's going on and make sure that they can detect predators even amongst this thick, dense bush that we see here. And you'll find that they'll be able to hear even the smallest sound, and that keeps them quite safe. So they're an animal that actually is not that easy to hunt. Now I'm going to go forward again because they just moved into a little sort of thicket area. There we go, Ferg. You should be... Oh no, she's just bounced off. Now, unfortunately, our kudu have just run off into the thickets, and that's sometimes what they do. They can be a little bit skittish. Now, there is one other member of the team that you haven't met yet that is out and about, and he is walking around on foot through the bush and is going to try and show you lots of interesting things. So let's go across to my friend James so he can say hello.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome on this end of the bush walk. My name is James Hendry, and something is sticking into my back, which is causing me a great sense of discomfort. I am going to try and remove it during the course of this drive. Hashtag Safari Live is how you get hold of us. It's so itchy, I think it's a thorn in my shirt, or a caterpillar, something like that. Anyway, hashtag Safari Live is how you get hold of us on Twitter. I'm sorry that we were going to have a high school joining us today, but we're not anymore, unfortunately. We have Sebastian on camera. That's got nothing to do with the high school, and so please do ask us your questions as you normally would at this time of the day. We'll do our level best to answer them. Over here in front of us, we have got two species of antelope, one an Impala and the other a giant herd of wildebeest. We're just going to sort of mosey on down here in a subtle fashion, and with any luck they won't think that we're trying to eat them. We aren't trying to eat them, by the way, in case you were wondering. We are simply going to try and approach them on foot. The temperature, I'm told, is 22 degrees Celsius. The wind, however, is rendering the temperature, I think, substantially lower than that, and so as soon as you get out of the sun, it's time to put a jersey on. And I will also tell you that the wind which is blowing in a very sort of odd southwesterly direction. It's very strange. Has blown up all sorts of things that have caused an allergic reaction in Seb's eye, and so he is very bravely shouldering through this drive in the manful fashion of the Gabonese and French. Good. There are the wildebeest. You can see me standing with them as they stream majestically across the plains in front of me. Well, they're not quite streaming, they're more sort of ambling at the moment. And they are alarm calling at me. They are deeply alarmed by me, despite the fact that this is probably the 785th time they've seen me walking towards them. They are going, which is of course ridiculous. I cannot catch you. I am not fast enough. Cease your running. There we go. Now they are streaming majestically across the plains. Good. Well, as the sort of cliched link from an antelope to a predator goes, we're going to go across to Jamie now, who's got something that would really like to eat these wildebeest.
They would really love to eat those wildebeest, James. And he's absolutely right. We're getting predictable, aren't we? I must say a big thank you to James, because this afternoon, technically, I'm meant to be on bushwalk. But since this is potentially my last opportunity to spend some time with the Nkuhumas for a while, he very kindly offered to walk for me and let me go out on drive, just so that I could spend a bit more time with them. We don't know where they're going to be tomorrow, and tomorrow will be my last drive on Djuma for a little bit, before heading off to the Mara. So I really, really wanted to catch up with the Nkuhumas one more time, because when I next see these cubs, they're going to be absolutely massive, including our little boy at the back. I can't believe how much he's grown. He's getting a little furry face now as well. The mane just starting to peak. Look there, he's got a little mohawk down his shoulders, a little patch of fur around his cheeks. Oh, of course he got shy because I drew attention to it, like a teenage boy. Now, driving up to leopards, welcome to our sunset safari. You want to know if I can see amber eyes? I can't see any of the lion's eyes, unfortunately, which does make it quite tricky. From what I understand, she was missing, and correct me if I'm wrong, but she was missing from the sunrise safari this morning. And she's been missing from the Pride now for a little while. We think there's a possibility of cubs on the way. I don't know, I haven't seen her, so I can only go off what other people have been saying to me. I haven't seen any sign of her. I think she's around here somewhere. I know they had all 5 of them all together not so long ago. I haven't seen amber eyes. There's a couple of the cubs. There's at least one cub that's inherited that amber-eyed gene. But no, I'm not sure if she's here or not. The only lioness I've identified is one of the mothers. One of the young mothers with the spotty nose. And she's the one that got up and walked off and lay down separate from the rest of the Pride over there in front of us. That's the spotty-nosed lioness. But we'll have to wait until this evening when they start to get up. And with this chilly weather, the chances are they might get moving earlier than normal. There she is. So that's for one of the mothers. If I remember correctly, she's the mother of the oldest set of cubs, if I'm not mistaken. It's been so long, I have to try and remind myself of who's who in the Nkuhuma Pride. I think the last time I saw them was with Senzor. Now, Mary, you want to know how can we tell one pride from another? Well, the big thing is the area that they move around in, and then the dynamics as well. So knowing the fact that there are typically 5 adult lionesses in the Nkuhuma Pride, they spend a lot of time around this area. This is within their territory, absolutely within their territory. And there's also a very distinctive genetic look, I find, to the lion prides. Look, in isolation, I don't think I would be able to look at one picture and instantly say, oh, that's an Nkuhuma and that's a Styx. But you start to kind of get familiar with their facial features a little bit. There's just certain ways, like the Nkuhumas are quite I wouldn't call them lanky lions. They're quite sort of slender-looking lions, whereas the sticks are quite stocky-looking. And of course, the fact that the sticks have had really serious mange in the past. The Nkuhuma's got it as well, but the sticks have been far worse affected. So the lionesses are slightly scruffier-looking. But really, it's based on area as well, and the fact that we, as guides, are always sort of partially, as much as we can, keeping track of where the lion prides are through WhatsApp communication. We've all got a big group that we communicate on whenever we see lion prides, so we know that they've been in this area for a while. What's going to be interesting is getting to know the different lion prides in Kenya, because we're going to be seeing far more prides. But we'll have to develop the same history that we have with the Nkuhumas. I mean, many of you have been watching them for years and years. I've spent the last 2 years of my life pretty much with the Nkuhumas. A little bit with the sticks, sometimes with the Salalas, but essentially the Nkuhumas have been the lions that I've seen. The Nkuhumas and the Birmingham boys. We went through that whole pride takeover, watched their numbers dip. And charming, there are 5 lionesses in the Nkuhuma Pride. An older lioness, 2 younger lionesses, around about the same age. Those are the 3 that are the mothers of the 6 cubs. And then Amber Eyes, and then 1 young lioness, who I presume is here. She might be the missing one, I honestly don't know. And the younger lioness was still, she was about 1.5 years or so when the Birmingham boys first took over 2 years ago, and we found out that they'd killed her sister, and it was quite a tough situation that the Nkuhumas went through, because when I first arrived here, there were 8 of them. And just before I arrived here, there were 9. And the Birmingham boys killed 2 adult lionesses, 1 young lioness, and then, of course, Junior moved out on his own. Junior was the male from the Nkuhuma Pride. It was time for him to move off on his own. So to see them flourishing once again, although Tristan's been telling me about their history and the fact that the pride actually used to be enormous once upon a time. So it's nice to see them gaining in strength once again. Lots of hungry mouths to feed, though. And I would say that means that tonight they're going to be out and hunting. And this is exactly where we want to be. We want to be sitting right here in time for them to get up and start moving. I really want the little boy to lift up his face again. He had his head up when we first arrived. I couldn't believe the scraggly mane he's got. I always have a soft spot for young male lions. There's something about their awkward gangliness that I find very endearing. And their scruffy manes. I wonder how big they'll be when I get back. They, of course, are completely unconcerned by my departure. Right, they're unconcerned about quite a lot of things this afternoon when they've got a nice sleepy spot in the shade. So let's head back across to James, who apparently has got some spiky things.
No, not very spiky, although the spiky thing is still in my back. This is, of course, Kalenko lanceolata, or lanceolota, I think, and it is the other Kalenko species. I showed you the one yesterday evening, and in keeping with the general theme of the Kalenko flowers, which I'm sure all of you are sitting on the edges of your seat to hear about, we are doing the other Kalenko species today. This one, with rather than a rotund leaf, has got a long leaf. Lanceolata. Here is said leaf. Can you see it here, Seb? Let me break it off for you. There we are. Lanceolata. A lanceolate leaf. Good. Now I'm going to place it here because I don't want to appear flippant about my treatment of the plants out here, so we're going to put it over there. Now, we also have 2 very interesting things going on here. Yes, in fact, we have 3 very interesting things going on here. Here is the second interesting thing going on. There is a little spider there, and I think that it is a crab spider disguised as one of the blooms on Kalenko lanceolata. There it is. Can you see it there, Seb?
Yeah.
And I disrupted his life, and that's why he sort of fell off there and then let out some silk and came climbing back up again. Isn't that nice? Tiny little crab spider, waiting for things to come and try and feed on these flowers, which I'm sure they will. I don't know what they'd be, though. I don't see anything in the flowers, nor do I see anything sort of trying to eat them, so I'm not sure what they attract or what vectors pollinate them and send the seeds around. And then we have got something quite amazing, I think, because they've... Is it just one?
It is one day.
It's just the one for now. Oops. It's a bug. And it lives on this plant. And I don't know what kind of a bug it is. It's got a proboscis, but I don't think it's an assassin bug.
I think let's try and put him in the sun.
There?
Yeah. Perfect, thank you.
So I don't know what kind of bug he is, but he's one of those, probably next to eating. I don't think he's predatory, but he's got lovely colours, and he's probably quite toxic given his reddish colours and black colours. And if he is an assassin bug, well, I'm pretty sure he isn't, but if he is, of course, then I'm in mortal danger. Not mortal danger, but in some danger, because he could stick his proboscis into me and inject his horrid little suite of chemicals into me and cause me great distress. Let me put him back here. Get on your... No, you can't. No, he's flown off. Right, well, that's all I have to tell you about Kalenko lanceolata. There it is. Good. On we go. Now, let's head back to Pyjamas Patterson and her cats, who should probably be in pyjamas.
They definitely look as though they should be in pyjamas. There's our little boy with his head up and his scraggly mane around his cheeks and his chest. It's very cool. I imagine that he's going to have a much fuller mane when I next see him. He's got amorish eyes. Of course he shut them on demand. I was just wondering about the bonds between siblings, because of course he's going to go off at some point in the next 2 or so years, maybe even 2.5 years. When he reaches sexual maturity, it will be time for him to leave the rest of the pride. I was just wondering whether the sisters or females ever miss the males, or if they look for them in the beginning, especially for siblings, because these cubs grow up so incredibly close to each other. They're constantly cuddling on top of each other, playing with each other, chasing each other around. It makes me wonder about the bonds between them. I guess they're severed instinctively, just like they must be for leopard siblings. But I think what we shall do this afternoon is we'll probably leave our sleepy lions and then come back a little bit later. Oh, they don't look like they're up to too much. Which is fine. That's what lions do. Often sleeping for 20, 22 hours a day sometimes. I can't work out which lioness this is, though. And hello to Olivia, who is 7 years old. Olivia, I have seen white lions before, and I think they are amazing creatures. So a white lion is just like these lions, and you can actually find them in this particular reserve, in this particular protected area. We don't see them as yet, but we don't see them here. But there's a family or a pride of lions up further to the north of us that has that white lion gene. White lions are not albino lions, they're leucistic lions. So they still have a certain degree of pigment. It does create that very startling pale coat, and it's just a recessive gene. So it's rare in nature, and you have to obviously get two parents carrying that recessive gene, but it does pop up every now and again in unexpected places. So the most famous white lions are in the Timbavati, which is a reserve that is open to this reserve and open to the Kruger. And then all of a sudden a white lion popped up near the Lubombo Mountains in the Kruger, which is all the way on the opposite side of the reserve. So the genetics are there. They're not common though, because naturally a white animal out here isn't a particularly good color. It makes their skin more sensitive to the sun. It comes or carries a certain disadvantage when it comes to camouflage and hunting. So it's not a gene that has been selected for, which is why there's lots of arguments about places that breed white lions on the basis of trying to save them, or argue for keeping them protected as a separate species. It's not really necessary, because it's something that nature takes care of. It's just a color mutation. That's all it is. It's a color morph. Just like you get some melanistic leopards in nature, or a king cheetah. They're not separate species. Of course, lions aren't too bothered by the differences they see in their pale-coloured brethren. Laurie, you want to know if lions are colourblind? Pretty much. They certainly don't see in the same amount of colour that we do. There are certain colours that stand out to them a little bit, so they're not seeing in complete grayscale. They do see a little bit, if I remember correctly, they see a little bit of red and a little bit of green. So they can see a little bit of color, but it is not particularly good. Obviously, that color vision has been sacrificed for the ability to see at night. So they've got a completely different concentration of rod and cone cells, or balance of rod and cone cells in their eyes, which allows them to see pretty much as well as we do during the day, but at night, making use of all kinds of ambient light, anything that's around. So they do see a little bit of color. I think it's blue as well. I think they also see quite a bit of blue, if I'm not mistaken. So they're not, everybody always talks about predators being completely colorblind. So they're not. They don't see completely in black and white. Obviously, blacks and whites, as colors, do stand out very, very clearly. Oh, there's the lioness with the fluffy chin. That's the other mother. Okay, I figured out at least which two lionesses are here. I still don't know if it's the younger lioness or amber eyes. There we go. That's the lioness with the fluffy chin. We develop strange ways of identifying our lionesses, or recognizing them. The animals that do have very good color vision are birds and primates. And that does explain the use of bright colors in the various primate species when it comes to reproduction, when it comes to sort of marking off exactly, oh, we're going to make it. Almost. Yay, well done, Craig. There we go. Oh, no. No, they're just too much above us. There's a pair of starlings sitting in the dead tree above us, which would have been very appropriate for our color vision chat. Birds, of course, known for a lot of bird species having very bright colored feathers and bright colored bills and faces, clearly demonstrates that they can see quite well in color, even without having to study their eyes. And then primates, as I said, use of different bright colors in terms of their reproductive strategy. The blue monkey, the vervet monkey, I don't think I need to explain to you why, in my head, I called them a blue monkey. Flies are biting them. Okay, Lion Puddle. I think it's time for us to leave you for now and come back a bit later. We'll go off in search of other things and then come back to the lions a bit later. And then we can sit with them for the last hour or so of drive. Alright, I wonder what on earth Tristan has planned for his afternoon. Perhaps he'll tell you.
Well, Jamie, my plan is at this stage is to be infinitely better than what I have found very little to show anybody, really. It's been a quiet sort of drive along, checking Twin Dams and Chelapan. I've checked Pangolin Track, Treehouse Dam, and I have zero to show for it. I had one Impala ram and then a squirrel that then ran away from me. So a little bit dry at this stage, but what we're going to try and do is we're just checking along the southern boundary just in case little Shongile decided maybe to come back. I know Jamie had fresh tracks for Shongile this morning and she had a Kudu's alarm calling, and we know that Shongile and Hasana like to walk during the day, and particularly in sort of cooler weather like this, it's possible that maybe, just maybe, they've come back to this area. So I'm just checking around very, very carefully just to see if maybe they're around. And other than that, I think I'm going to start then slowly heading towards the eastern side of the reserve, go and check out Chitwa Dam, because Chitwa Dam generally has something going on there, and then onward and towards Cheetah Plains, and try to see if I can't find out what happened with those 2 or 3 Birmingham males and where they all ended up. And then you never know, maybe, just maybe, we can show Ferg his first cheetah since he joined Wild Earth, and the 2 brothers maybe be around. So that's the kind of plan for the afternoon. So hopefully it will all pan out, because otherwise we're going to have a tough time of it, that's for sure. And if it continues the way it's been now, it's going to be very difficult. There's not even a bird in sight. Right, so we were talking about panning out and looking for interesting things, and I believe James Henry is at a pan himself, and I'm sure has something interesting to show you.
Oh, I do, a lovely piece of gooey poo. I made that up on the fly, you know, I didn't even plan that. This is a piece of gooey buffalo dung that is currently being very gratefully consumed by a number of insects. You can see they've dug little tunnels around for themselves to walk in amongst their food, devouring it as they go. A couple of beetles, some flies, a few larvae, a few spiders, I can see some ants, various bits and pieces living in the magnificence of this buffalo dung. Now the buffalo, of course, oh, and here's an expired dung beetle. This isn't the expired dung beetle that Tristan showed you yesterday, is it? No. That is a giant dung beetle, by the way. And I'm not sure what fate befell it, but it is most certainly not alive anymore and hasn't been for some time. It feels like it's been hollowed out already, so all the soft and nutritious bits will have been taken out by things like the ants that are crawling around on top of it. And what will be left is the chitinous, indigestible exoskeleton. And those ants just scavenging the last little pieces of useful nutrients from this hapless dung beetle, whose fate, or origin of whose fate, is unclear. Don't know how he died. Anyway, we'll put him on there. And what I wanted to show you about this was how basically we can tell whether it's fresh or not. It's not fresh, don't worry, so there isn't about to be a buffalo charging out of the bushes at us. It's got this crust on it, and this crust is quite important because it is a mucous membrane that comes out for some reason on top of the dung, and it hardens in the sun. And then it protects the rest of the dung from desiccating, which is quite nice if you happen to, totally irrelevant to the buffalo, not butterfly, but it's very relevant to the creatures that like to eat the dung, because it remains moist and warm inside the dung for a long period. So that's why there's so many creatures in here. Now, this buffalo was probably here sometime during the, I think probably during the dawn yesterday, and it came towards this pan that we're going to have a look at now. And while we move towards it, I think it's Laurie, you're wondering what's happened to all the dung beetles. They disappear with the rain, Laurie. As soon as the sand or the ground becomes relatively hard, they disappear. They need soft ground to bury their dung in. And of course the dung that they bury contains their eggs, and then those eggs don't hatch properly. And so that's why as soon as the rain stops and the ground hardens, the dung beetles disappear. Here is the track of the buffalo that made that large dung pile. Now, even to the inexperienced tracker, this does not look like a fresh track. And it doesn't look like a fresh track because of a few things. Firstly, we've had quite a windy day, and so you can see that this track has been blown over. It's not particularly distinct. But mostly, of course, there is an antlion that has created its home right on top of the buffalo track. And so this wasn't made yesterday, at least it wasn't made 5 minutes ago. It could have been made at lunchtime though. Because it's windy, you need to be a little bit careful about this. Now, let's move towards the pan here and see what he did over here. While we answer James's question of whether or not I think that the buffalo are going to have sufficient grass during the dry season. Yeah, I think they're going to have a lot more than they had last year, and I think that that should see them through. We've had a pretty normal rain year. We're obviously still catching up from the lack of rain that we had last year, and so that will affect how well the buffalo do during the course of the dry season. So maybe not as good as a sort of average year, but they'll do okay, I think. There's certainly a lot more than there was this time last year. Now, he walked in here, you can see where my stick is pointing, and then he probably, oh yes, and then he walked further in there, and then he stomped into the mud, and I suspect he lay down in that glorious mud for probably much of yesterday. He could have even been here sort of early this morning, I suppose. Thankfully he's not here. We approach this pan with very great care. I don't see, oh, yes, here's something quite fun, Seb. Seb and I were looking and talking about, of course, that monitor lizard that walks up and down between Twin Dams and Djuma Dam, which is just up here. And many of you have seen him, and in fact, Jamie, I think, was showing you a monitor lizard at that dam today, and it could have been the tracks from this chap. He follows a path up from Twin Dams, an enormous lizard, up from Twin Dams to the Wildebeest Dam. Why he feels the need to go between those two waterholes, I'm not sure, but he does it all the time, and there is his track. That's his back foot on top of his front foot, I think. Isn't that amazing? So he's come past, I'll show you the game path he walks, then he goes out onto the road when it becomes a little bit difficult in through here, and then he goes into the waterhole. I think that's wonderful. Now, if you're ever out here and bored and wanting to do some art or some sort of clay work, you should definitely not watch the episode that we did during Endangered Species Day, because we made some very horrific clay animals. And because we didn't have clay like this, but this clay would be just perfect. It is ideal for making little animals, which I'm not going to make for you now, because I'm not very good at it. But I will show you what I think is a starling feather. Can you see? Yep. Can you see the colour there? Reflecting. I think that's the down feather from probably a Birchall starling. Beautiful. Alright, well, I can hear some Cape glossy starlings in the background. I thankfully can't hear any oxpeckers, which means this buffalo is probably not close by. We'll continue down this game path, and as we go, I believe Jamie Patterson has left the dozy sleeping lions and is on the search for something else.
I don't know what I'm on the search for, but I am on the search for something else, and I've just spotted something that's raced across the road ahead of us. Now let's see if it decides to stick around. James is talking about those statues that we made for Endangered Species Day. I was having a good chuckle. Mine was an absolute disaster, an unmitigated disaster. And that, I think, is why my art teacher in high school told me not to do art for matric, which is what we call our final year of school. She just kindly requested that I don't. I could have sworn I saw a dwarf mongoose just run across the road. But now I can't hear anything. I don't even hear a squeaking. Normally they contact call to each other. Nope. Okay. Well, then we'll carry on then. Let us see what else we can find. And then hopefully, I'd say, spend the last hour or so with the Nkuhumas. Sounds like a good idea. For those of you that missed the sunrise safari, Craig and I had so much fun this morning. Gotcha. With a brand new hyena cub. It was so unexpected. That's half the fun of being out here, is that things change so quickly. Bit to the right there, Craig. There. Look who's there. Definitely not the dwarf mongoose that I saw run across the road, but one of its family members. Hello. Oh, I think there's two there. Looks like it's something. Oh no, what is that? I saw something. Oh, there are definitely two. I just saw it. It must be an ant or something crawling along. There we go. Two dwarf mongoose. And if this is the family that I'm thinking of, they spend quite a lot of time in the middle of the road in Impala Road, or on Impala Road. They're very, very comfortable with vehicles. They're not bothered by us at all. I've had them come right up to my vehicle tires before, and I've snuck up to them on my belly as well, and taken photographs of them. They're exceptionally tolerant. Hello. Shining in the afternoon sun. They always look so well groomed. Apart from when they've got spider webs on their faces, from when they've ducked into their burrows quickly, and the spider web is across the entrance, they always look so neat and tidy. Shall we go forward a little bit? I think that might be a better approach. Then we might see them in the open. They'll pop back out. They've ducked in, but they should pop out as soon as we stop. They'll relax again, and then we can chat a little bit about Kay's question. This is the most common dwarfer, the most common species that we see. Kay, the slender mongoose and the banded mongoose are not the same. They are a different species entirely. Now, the dwarf mongoose and the banded mongoose are probably the most similar, except that the banded mongoose is about twice the size of a little dwarf mongoose. It's only really about 300 or so grams, which I've recently learnt is 10.5 ounces, for those of you interested. Banded mongoose is quite a lot larger than that. A slender mongoose is a solitary mongoose species. It looks a little bit like a dwarf mongoose, with a very long tail and a black tip to its tail. And I would say in this area there's sort of a tannish colour or a reddish brown colour. It differs depending upon where you are. Slender mongoose very widely distributed throughout South Africa. And what I'm doing now while you're watching the little mongoose is I'm looking for a picture of the two different ones. We see both of those species here, banded and slender mongoose. Both of them are almost impossible to get on camera. We've had more luck probably with slender mongoose. We occasionally have a sighting where it sticks around, but the banded mongoose are ridiculously skittish. I've only seen them about 4 times here. Where? So slender mongoose and banded mongoose are around about the same size. That's a terrible picture. I was looking for a picture to show you, but it's not a particularly good one in my book. But it does give you a good size of the different mongoose members. So there is our little dwarf mongoose, naturally the smallest of the dwarf mongoose family. There's a human hand for a sense of scale. And then the meerkat, or the suricate, and the yellow mongoose, both desert-dwelling mongooses. And then there's the slender mongoose, quite a lot larger than the dwarf mongoose. And then the banded mongoose, which is quite a stocky mongoose species, quite big and stocky. So they are different species entirely. I'm just going to have to move off the road. There's another vehicle coming, wanting to come and see the lions. Just give me 1 second. How's it, Tax? How are you? Good, thanks. How's it, guys? They're still there. They haven't done much moving. Cheers. Laurie, you want to know how many groups of mongoose there are? Do you mean in terms of species or in terms of how many groups of dwarf mongoose there are? Megs thinks perhaps you mean how many different species there are. As for how many groups of dwarf mongoose there are, well, I couldn't begin to tell you. Lots, seeing as they have tiny little territories of 10 hectares. How many different species? We get... Let's see if they'll pop out again. So at least you don't have to look at me while we're chatting about a mongoose. Hopefully we can actually look at a mongoose itself. The main species that we see are the dwarf mongoose, the slender and the white-tailed, the nocturnal white-tailed mongoose, and occasionally banded. We do get them here. So there's 4 species that you like, or you'll be lucky to see some of them, but that you're likely to see. There's also water mongoose in this area. Occasionally. I did see tracks. Look there, see, it's got a spiderweb on its nose. That's what I was talking about. Oh, it's got a blade of grass on its nose, a spiderweb and some grass. That's what I mean every time they duck into a burrow that hasn't been used in a while. So those are the mongoose species that you're likely to see here. Something like a yellow mongoose or a meerkat, they will be found in the more arid areas of the country. There's also occasional recorded cases of Miller's mongoose. I walk in the rain. That's something I'm excited to find out. You want to know what mongoose species we will see in the Mara? I don't know yet. I'm actually not 100% sure. We'll find out. That's going to be half the fun. I wonder if there's anything different that we can add to our mammal lists. There must be. I'm pretty sure that Brent said the main one that he sees is lots and lots and lots of banded mongoose. So apparently, Ben tells me that there's huge groups of banded mongoose there, so we'll actually get to see them. Alexis, who's 6 years old. Hello, Alexis. Alexis, you've asked a very good question. You want to know how many babies a mongoose will have in the wild. And they average around about between 2 to 4. No, sorry, talking nonsense. They average around about 4 to 6, Alexis. Now they can have up to, I think it's 8 little babies, but you're usually looking around about between 4 to 6 little ones. And the whole dwarf mongoose family will be devoted to looking after the little ones. They will look after them, they'll guard them, they'll take care of them, they'll babysit them. That's one of the things that I love about dwarf mongoose. And we've seen some amazing sightings of mongoose moving their babies, playing with their babies. Bless you, Craig. I know, it's sneezy season, isn't it? There's definitely something in the air. It's causing all of us to sneeze. I would love, Alexis, I would love for you to be able to see a baby mongoose. They're too cute. They're about the size of my palm when they first start emerging from their burrows. I mean, really very, very sweet. Channing, no, mongoose species don't interbreed. I don't even think they could in a forced situation. In an unnatural situation, I'm not sure that they would interbreed. They are completely separate species, and of course the widely accepted definition, although I'm sure I could spark quite the debate, the widely accepted definition of a species, or at least part of the definition of a species, is that there's very little interbreeding between two distinct species. Of course, there's more complex situations, like, for example, with the wild cat and domestic cats, but generally speaking, that's what classifies them as a different species if they don't interbreed with each other. Although there is debate about that, and I know it's an oversimplification. Imagine a cross between a dwarf mongoose and a white-tailed mongoose. No, they don't interbreed. And in fact, a dwarf mongoose in its lifetime may actually never get the opportunity to breed, because only the alpha male and female will be the ones that have babies. Sometimes, yes, a female does, and female that's not the alpha female will mate with a male, and she will have pups, but then there's a good chance that the alpha is going to kill it, or kill them. Alright, Mongoose, we're going to move on. Let's go and see whether James has had any luck with aquatic creatures at a water.
I haven't found any aquatic creatures, I'm afraid. We're just looking at some tracks around here, and we have a number of different ones, and I'll try and explain the difference between them, although it can be very difficult unless you've actually been sort of on the ground here. Here we have a warthog track where I'm pointing. And what we're looking at there is how square it is. Although it is slightly pointed towards the front, it is actually a fairly square track. It's not very pointed at all. And there are a few of those. There's one, and if you follow my stick over this side, there's one over here. And then there's quite a distinct track over there. Now that to me looks like the track of a steenbok. Although it could be a young impala. The reason I think it's a steenbok is that it is very sharp. You can see it's sharp at the end. It's got very straight edges. And it's bigger than a steenbok would be normally, but of course this is mud, which means that the steenbok would have stood there and then slipped forward, which would inevitably make the track slightly longer. Then if I was to look over here, next to my little boot, just over there, can you see there, Seb?
Yep.
That, I think, is a duiker's track. Now, duikers is roughly the same size as a steenbok, but you can see here it is much, much rounder. And I think that you'll find this was a duiker that had the same thing. It looks much larger than a duiker's track, but because it's mud, it would have stepped here and then sort of slid forward to about there. So those are the three most obvious tracks around here. And then they're all overlapping each other, and it's quite difficult to tell what's what. Ooh! And then this one here, I'm just going to clear away the muck around it. I think that that is a nyala. In fact, I don't. I think it's a female kudu. It's quite a big one, but you can see how round it is. All the tragolaphids, the kudu and the bushbuck and the nyala, have got very round tracks, and this one has got very round edges to it. So I'm pretty sure that's what came down to drink here. Now, as we go into the winter time, of course, this pan is going to become more and more important, and there are going to be more and more tracks around here and different bits of activity, and the thing we're going to have to watch out the most for on bushwalk around here is going to be, of course, the buffalo. Now, kitty, kitty, bang, bang, I think it's been a time since I've heard from you. You're wondering about whether or not we ever make plaster molds of these tracks. I don't. I have done it once or twice before. I find it deeply frustrating on account of the fact that I am so poor with that sort of thing that inevitably whatever I create will look like a sort of plaster of Paris mush ball. And so no, I have never tried to make one. Well, I have a few times, but I have never succeeded in making a very good one. I know some people who have made very beautiful molds of the tracks around here and at other places using plaster of Paris, but I have yet to make one that I've kept. Alrighty, we're going to carry on. Now Tristan has gone all the way to the far east, and I believe that he has arrived at the destination of his choice, where he is going to try and find Fergus, of course, his very first cheetah.
We are indeed, and Fergus, I think, might just be in luck, because there's just been reports of tracks for 2 cheetah crossing onto Cheetah Plains from Nkoro side. So we're trying to quickly get into that area so that I can check that they haven't crossed south yet and try and see if we can't find them quickly. But Ferg, I think you might be lucky today. Hopefully that will be the case. It'll be very exciting if it is. And it's amazing because it's the first sort of sign of cheetah, or sort of any sort of tracks of cheetah in the last few weeks, so I'm hoping that they will be around. Now there's one vehicle in front of us, so we're going to let them kind of carry on, and we'll try and take a different route to them. Ferg, I think let's go down here rather. This is going to be quicker. Alright, so the reason why we want to check the southern boundary is because these 2 cheetah can often move quite quickly, and they get into positions where they kind of cross out, and so that's why I want to try and get that. Rather find flat cheetahs if they are sleeping and spend more time with them than not run there and not get them actually on cameras. If they're still moving, then they can sometimes cross this whole area quite quickly, so just trying to kind of get into that area as quick as we can. I wonder if they have not ended up sleeping somewhere around Cheetah Plains Pan, which is where we had the 3 Birminghams yesterday, which is very, very interesting. So I'm going to try and just see if we can't find any sign this side. But it's exciting nonetheless. It's always exciting when you find tracks for things or hear about tracks. Kind of gives you this hope and this sort of, you get into like a little childlike mode where you kind of get super excited about what's going on. Right, so we're going to try and see if I can't get onto the open area and check there very carefully, and while we do that I believe Jamie is still mongoosing about.
Indeed, I'm searching for anything that happens to be around. Craig and I have just been chatting a little bit about, we're going to do plaster of Paris tracks tomorrow morning on the bushwalk. I think that's a very, very good idea. Oh, awesome news. James has managed to find an elephant on foot.
Yes, we have, and it's, well, I mean, I'd love to say we did, but Rex found him while we were talking about things at the pan there. And it looks like a young bull to me, and a young bull's a great elephant to watch on foot because they're not particularly nervous, but they're confident enough not to run away if they see us. Now, he can't see us at the moment. We've hidden ourselves from him. I'll just show you which way the wind's blowing. Now, it's swirling all over the place. But predominantly it's coming from there to there, so he shouldn't smell us. But there he'll come out now into the open. Now he's seen us. Just taking a glance at us. Now this is quite interesting. Tristan found a tusk today, and that chap is missing his tusk on the left. I'm almost certain if he can't see me standing behind this bush, he can almost certainly see Seb. No, fine. He's not reacting in a negative fashion, so we'll just stay here. We're a good sort of 60 or 70 meters from him. And his default now, you see what's happened is the wind has changed, and it's blowing towards him now. And if he can't see us, which I think he probably can, well, he may be getting a whiff of us. Ah, it's wonderful. Yeah, I know he's definitely seen us. Yeah. You saw that just that little turn behind like that. Now, as I said to you, I'm standing sort of in the cover of this bush, and I think they would struggle to see us in this kind of position. But Seb is standing out in the open now, trying to get a picture, of course, and I think that's what he spotted. But he's not reacting particularly nervously. He's moving away slightly. Seb is an intimidating looking fellow, of course. There he goes. This is a beautiful way to have an elephant sighting. It really is. We've got the sort of safety of the drainage line here. We're not too close to him, so we've got a good view. And at the same time, he's a young bull, which means that he's not going to react like an older bull would, which would be, I mean, an older bull can get a little bit cantankerous, might try and actually follow you, might actually try and come around the wind towards you, try and pick you up on the other side of the wind, try and smell you like that. And of course he's not nearly as protective as a cow with a whole lot of calves. Let's walk just a little bit along here and see if we can't get another view. There he is. Just see him moving away. Just moving all through the bush there. Now I would put him at round about 18 to 19 years. And it's possible that there's a herd around. Now he's got a little bit upset that we are out in the open like this. Now George, you're wondering how fast an elephant can run. George, an elephant can run probably at about, I'd say 45 to 50 kilometers an hour, which is about 35 miles an hour or so, much faster than a human being can run. Your only chance, I mean, if he was to come, if that was a big musk bull and he'd taken real offense at us and he'd just come charging across the bush at us, our only chance of getting away would have been to run very quickly down a game path, change direction, and try and get the other side of the wind from where he was running. Then he might struggle to pick you up. But in a straight line, you'll never outrun an elephant. Right, that was wonderful. Unexpected and very pleasant surprise. I'm a little bit upset that he saw us, but I think it was fairly inevitable because the sun was perfect for him to look for us. Alright, Tristan is on the hunt for his cheetah. Let's go back to him.
We are indeed, James, and so far no sign on the southern boundary, which is relatively good news. It means if they haven't come southwards, then they should be between here and the Nkuhuma boundary, which is fantastic. It means that they're still on this area and maybe are just slowly moving their way southwards. So I'm just going to try and see if I can't spot them here. So they're saying that the tracks are coming south towards this big open area, but I don't see any signs of them, so they must be here somewhere. We now just have to scan around and look for them. Apparently are on Cheetah Road, so this sort of Shangaan word is Skankan, and they're on Skankan Road, the tracks coming southwards. So you need to just check very carefully here. If they're lying down flat in this grass, it's going to be quite tough to actually see them. So I want to just make 100% sure that they're not lying somewhere in this open area. We know that they often like to lie up on the top here, and it's this white colored grass, and if they flat down and it is quite windy, then it's possible they could be lying somewhere here. So we're just going to do a slow sort of loop around and check very, very carefully as we go. Now with this wind, I would imagine that they probably found somewhere where it's a little bit more sheltered. I don't think they're going to be right out in the open and really kind of getting blasted by the wind out here. I'm sure they're going to try and find themselves a little bit more of a better place to lie down. Let's see, no, nothing here at this stage, but let's just check around. Like I say, that they often do like to lie in this sort of corner of this open area. From here they can watch what's going on the open sections and see everything that's happening and then go from there. So hopefully they're still here. I hope they haven't crossed southwards. It's cool enough weather though that they could also have walked quite far already, so let's just check. No sign here. It's amazing how well they actually can camouflage. So Lucian, you're wondering what creates these large open areas. Well, a lot of them were man created. So what happened was, in times gone before, there was either an area that was overgrazed, because remember a lot of these areas were actually used for farming at one point and they were overgrazed completely, or there were areas where there was sort of experimental stuff done on getting rid of certain invasive species of trees, and you ended up with a situation where they then kind of cut out and got rid of some of these things like terminalias or bush willows, and you ended up with this system where you've got sort of open expanses. So a lot of it is that. Then there's also, it depends on the soil type. Some areas have very sort of sodic soils, which is difficult for plants to grow on, and that's when you can get these open sections like this. So it is a few places that are that way. Now, still don't see any signs of these cheetah brothers, but we're going to get our binoculars out and have a very good look around. And while we do that, let's go across to James, who has got something very small but can make a lot of noise.
I have, but it's gone, I'm afraid. It's in the... Seb, you stay here. I'm going to get around the other side of the tree, see if I can't flush it. It's a squirrel, and it sat so beautifully in the sun on the trunk of this great old leadwood tree. But as soon, of course, as it heard that it was going to be on camera, it absconded into the middle of the tree, where quite possibly it has a nest in which it will be storing marula nuts and other delicious things for the winter. He's not coming out, is he, Seb? Yeah, sorry about that, that's a bit of a loss. Anyway, come down here and we'll give you a long range view of an impala if you'd like it. I think, yeah, no, there they are. We can see them. Just quite a nice view down here of the drainage system that is the great Mlwamati. Can you see the impalas there, Seb? They're about 784 meters away. Now, more and more, I have to keep reminding myself, don't be complacent, don't be complacent. The buffalo are back. They are starting to frequent our pans and our dams. And that means, of course, that we need to keep our eyes peeled, our noses trained, and our ears very clear of wax, so that we might hear the buffalo. Yes, I can still see them, but I can just see the odd tail flicking in amongst the grass, Seb. So if you can't see them with the camera and the viewfinder, it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. Anyway, we're going to make our way gently down this drainage system. I'm trying to stop saying drainage system. I want to say river much more, because of course it makes more sense to people. Alrighty, we're going to bumble along on foot at the same while you go across to Jamie, who's doing that pretty much in her vehicle.
That is pretty much what I'm doing, but I've stopped for now because we've got a view of some more gorgeous kudu. So Tristan had some earlier. We've found a different herd. And I just love the way that they stop and stare at you with those giant radar dish ears of theirs. You can see she's got a collection of oxpeckers on her back, or at least I briefly saw some oxpecker heads poking up. And I can hear, but not see, a black-headed oriole calling somewhere. Ah, Roshni. You want to know how many different types of antelope in the Sabi sand? Right, well, we've had this question before. Let's count. I always end up forgetting one. So, we get Wildebeest, which is one, just the blue Wildebeest. Do we count Sesame? No, probably not. Okay, let's go through them. Let's take the spiral horned antelope first. So we get Kudu, Nyala, bushbuck, Wildebeest, Impala, Steenbok, Duiker, waterbuck, the occasional sable. We won't count roan or eland or sesame. Those are rare antelope. You're highly, highly unlikely to see them. Now I really feel like I've forgotten. They're definitely not just 9 species. Rebuck. The reedbuck that we saw once on Cheetah Plains, and I've seen them before on Buffelshoek. Who am I forgetting? That's 10. That cannot be the number of antelope that we have. Wildebeest, Nyala, Kudu, bushbuck, Impala, Steenbok, Duiker, waterbuck. sable, reedbuck. Am I forgetting? The number of times I get asked this question, you'd think I'd know the answer off by heart. I feel like I'm forgetting an antelope. Something common. Okay, let's go with 10, and I'll try and remember the one that I'm forgetting. We don't... Oh no, well, Sabi Sand actually. Sharp's Grysbok. The smallest of all of those antelope. Little Sharp's Grysbok. Klipspringer? Oh, come on, Jamie, where have you been? Tristan saw a Klipspringer on Simbambili. So Klipspringer, that's 12. I'm trying to find us our Kudu while I count. But it seems as though the Kudu have disappeared. True to form. Maybe I can find that Oriole instead. I am sure there are more antelope that I'm not thinking of, that I'm not counting. I've got to puzzle over this, and while I do, Tristan's puzzling over the whereabouts of his cheetah.
We are, Jamie, because they seem to have just vanished. They seem to have grown wings and flown away. I don't know where they've gone, actually. The last tracks that they had were coming right towards the big open section, and I've driven all around there, can't see any sign of them, can't see any tracks crossing at this stage. So either they've found themselves a really thick area to lie in, or they've crossed on a hard section and we just can't see their tracks. So we're just retracing our steps and seeing if we can't find exactly where they've gone. But they were heading kind of into this section here, which you can see the grass is very long. It's also quite bushy in this area, so it's not the easiest place to find two cheetah, particularly if they're resting. And walking around and trying to track cheetah on foot is never really the best idea, because they often get a fright and then they will walk, and we're so close to that boundary that I don't really want to try and scare them in any way. But the last tracks that we had were just on our left hand side here, crossing over towards this termite mound. Now this termite mound, I have seen them on there before, but not for a long time, and they definitely aren't there today. So the last sort of area that they must have gone is here somewhere. So Lucian, you're saying cheetah sightings are quite rare in Djuma, aren't they? Well, most definitely, Lucian. They're not very easily found, and that's because of the high density of hyena and lion and leopard and varying other predators that we do get here. So it makes it quite difficult for the cheetah to actually sort of inhabit this area successfully and not get too much competition out of it. So you find that they kind of pass through and they're quite transient in this area, and quite a few cheetah end up being killed by varying other predators here. So to find cheetah is very special, and in fact in the Djuma sort of section, the only place that we see these cheetah is these two males that we see right out in this far eastern corner on the sort of border of the Kruger National Park, and they kind of transit in and out and sort of into sort of Manyeleti area, and then down into Mala and east into Kruger. So you've got to kind of catch them as they come through, which is always the trick and always the difficulty. And in weather like today, it's so sort of windy and cool that these guys could have walked the entire day and could be already near the Sand River somewhere, and so it makes it a lot more difficult to actually find them. Now I'm just trying to check on this little track here, because this is where they were sort of heading, and I still haven't actually even seen a footprint for them, to be honest. So somewhere here is where apparently they went. So Debbie, the cheetah rely more on their sight than anything else. They have very, very good eyesight, and these big open clearings are quite nice for a cheetah when it comes to being able to spot where your prey is. So if you're looking over this sort of open clearing, that's why they'll often get up onto a termite mound or onto sort of higher things like logs or something like that, and then they can use that as a height advantage and be able to then see what's going on. So they do use their sight more than anything else, but their hearing and their sense of smell is also very, very good, much like most of the cats. I'm actually just trying to see where their tracks go. I don't see any sign of them. There has been 2 vehicles that have driven here, which does make it a little bit harder to actually see what's going on. But let's have a look now. I'm sure their tracks must be here. That's not clear. I do see their tracks here, but they're not very clear. Let's see, here we go. So here are our tracks. Now they're not very clear, but you can see them on my right hand side over here, just on the edge of the road. So there we go. That's the tracks of the two of them, and I've just got word now that one of the guys has found their tracks just north of the cut line going south, and so they must have crossed over just on a hard section. Unfortunately for us, it sounds like they have gone into Mala Mala, which is not ideal. So we're going to try and see. Maybe let's just go and scan that area again. You never know. Sometimes they lie down and they're so easy to miss that we might just go back to that open section and just check one last time and make sure that they do not cross south, or even they might just be sitting somewhere on the southern side. And luckily for us, we have these newer cameras which have quite a lot of reach on them. They do go a little bit further than even our older cameras. So I'm going to try and just see if they haven't maybe lay down somewhere where we can actually see them. But the nice thing is that we do have two vehicles that are helping us, so if they are around, hopefully we should be able to spot them. Now, I believe we're having very little luck, but James seems to be having, well, big luck really, and has found himself a very large creature to look at.
We're sitting here with some elephants again, but it's in very thick bush and we don't know where they're going. The wind is still good for us, but I think that small bull that we saw was probably attached to this herd. Rex is just over there, and the herd is spread out in front of us here. We were tracking them, and they were like great big grey boats, just slowly and silently floating through the bush here. And it is quite astonishing how quietly they can move. Now we are slightly exposed here, but we're at a distance that is not necessarily too dangerous for us. So we could extract from here if we had to quite quickly. I can hear more all the way around here. I can hear them feeding there. Kylie, I didn't say that, no. You said, did I say that was Fang's herd? No. I don't know whose herd this is. We can't see them well enough to be able to tell at this stage. They seem to be coming this way. Come over here. We're going to a termite mound over there. We'll go around this way. Now, Kath Box, you want to know how good an elephant's eyesight is? It's pretty good. It's probably about as good as ours. I'm just trying to find a termite mound here. But they do apparently have blind spots, so if you approach them completely from the side, they will miss you. Oh, there's a little termite Rex. We're going to termite mound. Come with me if you can. So we need to be very careful. We need to try and be as silent as possible. We need to be extremely cognizant of the fact that Seb, of course, is carrying a pack and watching what he's filming, and he needs to be very careful of where he puts his feet. Right, it's quite clear through here. We need to be constantly thinking, where's the wind blowing? We don't want them to pick us up. And you'll notice that I'm being a lot more cautious around this breeding herd than I am around that young bull. I don't think we're going to get a great view. I think the bush is too thick. across to Tristan, see what's happening on Cheetah Plains, and if we get a better view, you can come back and join me on this termite mound.
Well, I'm sure James would love to be on Cheetah Plains now because he'd be able to see his elephant very clearly. Not that we can see our cheetah in any way. There just seems to be no sign of them. We can't find any solid sort of track that goes over the boundary. We've scanned this whole area. There's nothing to sort of see other than some impalas way in the distance on the other side there. So there's some that are very far away, but I scanned around with binoculars. I can't see any sign of any cheetahs stalking them. And so I don't know really where our cheetah have gone. Maybe they're lying down under a tree somewhere and we just can't really pick them up. You can see that the grass is quite long in those places, so if they're lying under one of those trees and they're not got their heads up, it's going to be very difficult to see them. So alas, I don't think we're going to have much success here. This is unfortunately how it goes sometimes, particularly with things like cheetah. They do move quite a bit and you've got to just be at the right time in the right place to be able to find them. So I'm afraid that I don't think we are going to be successful with them this afternoon. So turtle lurper, you wonder if cheetah ever climb trees. Well, not sort of tall trees that are straight, that you'll find leopards are really the only ones that do that. Cheetah will climb lots of fallen over trees, so if there's a sort of an angle that's not too steep, you'll find they go up onto those and they often use them, as well as on termite mounds and varying other things. What have you spotted, Ferg?
I was going to show you a fallen over tree.
Ah, fallen over tree, there we go. So things like that they would be able to utilize. It's not a very nice one, but it is a sort of fallen over tree, and they will use those kind of stems that go up. And we were talking about it earlier with their eyesight as their sort of prominent sense. They will then try and find those kind of places where they can just get a little bit taller, particularly on grass like this. If you can get a little bit higher, you can often spot way into the distance, and it then really helps with being able to hunt. So they don't go up solid sort of straight stem trees, but they will go up these fallen over trees from time to time. Now, Ferg, I think let's go and check the Kruger Park boundary, just in case. You never know. Maybe these cheetah decided to go a little bit further east. I don't think that is the case, but let's just try anyway. And the problem is here is if you look on the road as I turn now, you can see it's very rocky indeed. So there is very difficult in front here to be able to spot a cheetah footprint. They are light animals at the end of the day. They don't have a heavy foot and small, thin, narrow feet, which means that it is quite difficult to actually see tracks crossing in an area like this. So they could have easily crossed this area and are now heading sort of into Mala Mala. Oh well, these things happen, so you sometimes have to just deal with that. Right, well, we just scope out this area one more time and see maybe if our luck has changed. Let's go across to Jamie, who seems to be having a wonderful afternoon with the lions and the mongoose, and maybe she's even found something else.
I missed that completely. I'm sorry. I have no idea what Tristan just said. Something about a mongoose. Ah, there we go. Thanks, Megan. I haven't found anything else. I have had a lovely afternoon, but I haven't found anything else. I am scouring the southern area of Djuma. This morning we just missed out on seeing a leopard, and I suspect, judging by the size of the footprints left crossing out of Djuma, I suspect that it was Shungile. And I was really hoping, against hope, that for my last drive around I might get lucky and she might have come back onto Djuma, come back north. Unfortunately, the area to the south is an area that we don't traverse, so we can't go there. It doesn't look like she's crossed back, which is unfortunate, but I am hearing a rumor of Tundi somewhere. I just have to get close enough to find out exactly where Tundi may be. Tundi, of course, being Shungile's older sister. I just have to get close so I can hear where the vehicles are. Fingers crossed it's on Chitwa. And fingers crossed it's not in the Mulwanini, because then we definitely won't be able to see them. I just want to do one check of the Mulwati drainage line, just to see whether or not there's any sign of Shungile or Hosanna. They've been spending a lot of time up and down here in the recent weeks. You never know. We might just be fortunate enough. It'd be nice to catch up with those 2 leopards before we leave. That I can walk up to Hasana when I did. I had a feeling it might be one of my last opportunities. Oh, wonderful. That is happy news. I actually was going to suggest that if Tristan didn't have any luck with his cheetah, then he make his way towards the Tundi sighting, and it sounds like that's exactly what he's going to do. Oh good, I'm happy about that. At least we know then it's on our traverse area. Hello boys. Have you seen a leopard by any chance? Or anything else? Is that a growth? Does his stomach look oddly bulging? It doesn't look like a normal impala stomach. Maybe he's just really full. Usually they're sort of sleek and smooth. So it's just the way he's standing. Or is there something else? It definitely looks more... One thing he's definitely not, although thank you for the suggestion, Lou. One thing he's definitely not is pregnant. I think that we can safely say he's not pregnant. You know, it being mating season and all. None of our impala are pregnant. We will gloss over the fact that he's got horns. I know Lou, of course, is definitely joking. He does look pregnant, though. There's something not quite right about that. I couldn't tell you what's wrong with him, though. It could be a hernia, maybe. Maybe he herniated. Not that smooth bulge, though. I'm not sure. But that's definitely not a normal-looking impala belly. Food baby, maybe. He doesn't seem to be walking with any discomfort. It doesn't seem to be bothering him at all. In fact, other than that, he looks perfectly healthy. Fit and strong, and in very, very good condition. But very much on alert. Our mystic wolf, most of the time, yes, the impala tail is tucked up under their bodies like that. If there are lots of flies about, then they will use it as a fly swatter, or at least just to sweep the flies away from them and stop them from sitting on the sensitive skin there. And then when they are rutting or running away from predators, what they'll do is they'll lift their tail up and they'll curl it over their backs, and it will fluff right up, so you get that very, very clear flash of white. And it's one of the ways that we think that impala will manage to sort of stay together as a herd as they run away from something. So it's usually tucked up like that when they're relaxed, but if they're running, then it lifts up and it flops over their back and fluffs up. And the rutting males also curl their tails up over their backs when they're trying to intimidate rivals. And these boys obviously haven't yet managed to compete for access to females. And of course, characteristically, the impala have the black stripes down near their tail. We don't fully necessarily understand the reason why. There's a lot of theories. I'm not going to stoop so low as to tell you that they are the McDonald's of the bush, because then James will take me out after drive and give me a very stern talking to. I'm not going to use that term. But there's a couple of reasons. One is that black is a highlighting color. We were talking about that with the lions earlier and whether or not they can see in color, and we spoke about how black stands out in the bush. So that's one of the ways that highlights one of their important visual communication tools. Also, there is a theory that because the black stripes get hotter than the rest of the body, just, black dark colours absorb the sun or absorb the light, and so in theory the ticks would come and spend more time around that area. So basically the idea would be to draw the ticks away from the more sensitive places and to a position where the impala can reach back and groom themselves. That's one of the theories behind the black stripes on the impala's bottom. The entire time that we've done this drive, just by the way, we've actually got a passenger. She's been here. She was there this morning as well, and I've just noticed she's constructed a really, really beautiful web. I don't know if you can see that, Craig, but it looks like she's really created the perfect home inside of Wendy. Completely harmless spider, not one we have to be worried about. Here she is. And look at that beautiful web that she's constructed. She can stay. It's the button spiders that I'm less comfortable with. But she can stay here. Alright.